Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the RepPath podcast. Today, guys, we're going to talk about Quota Crushers. Okay, these are what do the top elite reps do on a daily basis, and what makes them, seem to always hit their quota. So before we get into that, as always, guys, quick housekeeping. If you have any questions listening in, please submit it into the chat and we'll address some of those questions about halfway through the show. For all you guys that haven't looked into the RepPath Academy yet, if you're struggling, if you want to save time, instead of trying to do this on your own, guys, I've seen this time and time again where people try to do it on their own. They get frustrated to break into the medical sales industry and they give up on their journey. We want to prevent that. So click the link below, reppath.com. You can learn more about RepPath and the RepPath Academy. You can see on there the companies that we've helped place. And then most importantly, some of the testimonials of candidates that have broken into the industry quickly through the RepPath Academy. So check that out. Lastly, guys, if you want to see a copy of this podcast or any of the content that we create, please go on my YouTube channel, the RepPath Academy. You can click that link below right there and subscribe. It's 100% free, so you could get this recording and everything else that we produce. It's a great, great resource, guys. So hopefully you could check that out. Okay, so today, guys, Quota Crushers. Why is it that it's always the same reps, it seems, that are continuously hitting their quota, President's Club winners, always, getting recognized? And there's a lot of people that are, a lot of those reps that seem to be in the middle of the pack. So this podcast today is going to focus on, on how to get to that elite level and what are some of them doing? How do you get to that stage? This is a podcast for anyone either trying to break into the industry or is already in the industry and is looking to get a step up to get to that elite level. So we're going to talk about that. Some of the things we're going to talk about is what do those top reps do differently? For some of you that aren't in the industry yet, how to break into medical sales and what are some of the things, because I've gotten a lot of questions about that this week. Winning in the OR in the hospital environment, and then some career strategies. So first off, again, guys, what separates Quota Crushers from the average reps? And it's a mindset. It comes down to two things, guys. It's mindset and habits. I mean, it's that simple, but it's not easy. So first and foremost, guys, they have an extreme ownership of their territory. You're going to hear the bullshit line, treat your territory like it's your own business. Now, while I agree with the sentiment of that, it's still never your own business. When you own your own business, you'll know what I'm talking about because it's a totally different animal. Every single thing that goes on is on you. If this podcast goes out right now, thank God I got James, but I can't just say someone else is going to do it. You have to proactively be involved in whatever problem that's going on. You have to be involved in the finances of your company, every marketing decision, every sales call, everything is on you. If you don't have money to pay, your employees, you can't just say, sorry guys, when I get money, I'm going to get the bills. I'll get back to you on that. No, guys, you got to come up with the money. So everything is on you to make that happen. There's a lot of stress. But what they mean by that is treat it like your own business is you need to have extreme ownership of your territory. So what do I mean by extreme ownership? A lot of you guys right now, if someone asks you, what are you ranked? Okay. And a lot of you might say, I'm like in the top 15, 20%. It's the wrong answer, guys. You need to know I'm ranked 23 out of 144 reps. It should be in your head. How far are you away from quota? I'm about 50% to quota right now. Wrong answer, guys. 75% to quota. I need 3 more cases by the end of the month to hit my number, of 500,000 in sales for the quarter. That's the kind of answers you need to have. You need to own your territory inside and out. Who are the doctors that are going to get you to that next level and hit your number? Who are some of the low-hanging fruit or potential new physicians that you're going to be targeting this next quarter? You got to have all this mapped out, guys. You can't fly by the seat of your pants. And a lot of reps do. I've been there myself, guys. I definitely have gotten weeks where I don't know where I'm going this week. I'm not that busy. I've called on this doctor 50,000 times. The guy doesn't even pay attention to me. I don't want to go there again. Believe me, I've been there. I know what you guys are dealing with. So I want to keep it real. But the more that you know everything about your territory, everything about the doctors, about the staff, about what's going on in there, that's how you win. Right? James, I got a great movie reference for you that just clicked in.
Let's hear it.
It's out of the blue too. But Casino, Robert De Niro.
One of my all-time favorites.
Okay, Ace Rothstein,
Yep.
right? The same approach Ace Rothstein has to gambling in the movie, where he doesn't just make bets like Joe Pesci's character, like Nicky Santoro says, like just screwing around like me and you would do. He knows everything from, if there's something going on in the kicker's life, if the quarterback broke up with his girlfriend, if there's a little lingering injury that no one knows about, he knows everything going in. And that's what made him so successful. Now, granted, he was a gambler, and whatever the hell else he was, but he was great at what he did because he was so prepared and he owned his world there of knowing exactly what's going on that team with that player to make sure that he is successful in whatever bet he was making. You got to have that same approach, guys, in knowing everything about your territory. It's not just about knowing your doctor's names, it's or a couple of random pieces of info. You know everything. You know who the competition is, why they're using them, why they're not using you, why people use you over the competition. Who are some of their key members of their staff, who's influential in that group. Guys, all this stuff you need to know to have extreme ownership. That's what that means. James, I don't know if you like that one or not.
That one was probably your best movie reference to date. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I'm a big Casino guy. Big.
So I could have said anything about Casino. You would have.
I would have liked it. No, but it was very good. Ace Rothstein was very elaborate in his research.
I got a trivia question. If you know it so well, what was Ace Rothstein's real name in real life?
It was Frank Rosenstein, wasn't it?
It was Lefty Rosenthal.
Yeah, It was Frank Rosenthal. He went by Lefty.
Frank Rosenthal. I think they called him Lefty or something like that.
Yeah.
And what was his
Joe
wife?
Pesci's character?
No. Her name. Sharon Stone's character was. What's her name?
What was her name? Oh my goodness, what was her name? She was going crazy. It started with a G. Ginger.
Ginger's her name in real life. Is it real? Isn't it? Was it Ginger in the movie?
Pretty sure it was Ginger in the movie. Yeah.
Oh, geez, now I'm drawing a blank. Okay. Well, anyway, enough movie trivia, but you get my point.
Yes.
You get my point. It's about extreme ownership, guys, and that's what that means. It's knowing everything about your territory. You got to be prepared, especially for a lot of you guys that are interviewing right now. Some of you, that have experience and you're going for your next role, or some of you just have sales experience looking to break into the industry, no matter what your job is. It doesn't have to be sales. You could be a teacher, know all the specifics about your class, know everything about your students. You guys know this. You should be able to relay that information because some of these managers are going to test you, especially if you go through multiple rounds. You can't make shit up on a fly, guys, because there's going to be another interview. A lot of them ask the same questions. Sometimes you guys flop and the answers don't match. That's showing someone that's making stuff up. People that really own their territory know this inside and out. So you have to know it, not only to be successful and be an elite rep, but also if you want to break in, a lot of these managers are going to ask questions, testing to see how much of an ownership you have on your business. Next is
Ginger was her name in the movie. Jerry was her name in real life.
Jerry, I knew it was different in real life.
Yes, and it was Frank Lefty Rosenthal.
Yes. Great. Okay, good. Because I was sitting there, I'm like, I know in real life it was something different but similar. Anyway, is a great movie. Next, consistency and prospecting, guys. You have to maintain that. All the elite reps, you'll see a lot of reps that they're doing well because they have a couple of big doctors, meaning that these are high volume guys that really love their product, and it could take one or two of these guys, depending on their volume, that can get you to the next level. But trust me, guys, the elite reps, what they do different, their pipeline is full. They're constantly prospecting, looking for a third and fourth doctor that also can bring that same volume. Because if you're relying on one or two doctors, this is what an elite rep doesn't do. If an average rep does that, there's one or two doctors, they're crushing it one quarter, all of a sudden they go on a vacation, those doctors. Sometimes these guys go away for a month during the summer. That crushes your number, crushes it. I've seen guys that they were at 120% to plan, their big doctor took off, and they all of a sudden now they're at 65% to plan. Believe me, it happens, guys. And that's because they're not prospecting. They're relying too much on a couple of these key physicians. And that's not what an elite rep does. An elite rep is constantly prospecting to look for new whales out there so they can supplement any of the doctors that are having a slow month or maybe not using you as much for another reason. You have to consistently be doing that because trust me, guys, every other rep is coming after your business. When you have full ownership of a doctor's business and he's a big volume guy, there's a line out the door of other reps that are trying to get in there. So the moment that you slip up, they're looking to take that doctor back and trying to steal some of that business. There's no secrets who the big doctors are, guys. Everyone gets access to the same data. They know that's why a lot of people are there's lines out front of the same offices. Everyone's going after the same individuals. So you have to make sure that you're constantly prospecting to build that pipeline for new doctors to come in. Next is having a really good understanding of the clinical workflow. And that's why a lot of you that come from nursing backgrounds or techs from the hospital, they do really well in this business, not because they're super salesman, salesy type candidates. The reason why they do so well, they really understand the workflow. They know the pain points that a doctor goes through during a procedure, and understanding that and have a good, a down to earth, real feel for their pain points and being able to address them and sell to them. That's what's going to make you more successful. You need to really understand that. You need to understand that when you implement a new step in your process, whatever you're selling a device, and it adds a couple of steps in the process, what does that really mean in the OR? How many more minutes does that add to the case? If you understand the doctor's workflow and he's got to go to 3 cases here, then leave here, then go 45 minutes away to another hospital where he has privileges to do 3 more cases. Guys, the more that you understand that, they're going to respect you and want to work with you more because you know what their day's like. You know what they're going through. You know that if you implement this, it's going to make the nurses' jobs harder. So you got to really get that. Not to say that you, just because you add more work, you can't implement your product. No, but just have an understanding and be able to talk to them that I know by implementing this, it might result in an extra 5 minutes in the case, but you're going to see the extra value because it's going to do X, Y, and Z. So be cognizant that, the more that you have an understanding of what this means to them and talk to them, more like it's almost like 2 colleagues talking, that's what elite reps do. They have that full understanding. They're not clueless in saying that by interrupting your workflow here, what's the big deal? Meanwhile, they don't know that you have to see 45 patients today in your office, that you can't sit down with everyone and discuss something or try to sell them on something. And I've learned this in the past, guys. Quick example, when I was selling spinal cord stimulators and I wanted doctors to really, sell my product, like sell the differences in using my device over the competition. And when you sit with them in these offices, you see how much pain the patients are in, how a lot of times they're not even paying attention because they're struggling with their pain so much, and they can't grasp the terminology that it took us months to learn. They got to keep it real simple in layman's terms and explain something quickly. Now, instead of me telling the doctor, can you do this approach, and then have a 10-minute spiel on my product, I learned to be more, quick. And here's what you should say to the patients, these 1 or 2 quick points. That's what's really going to resonate. So things like that make a difference. Have an understanding. If you know the playing field, you're going to have a better understanding, and it's going to help you become more successful. The next one, guys, is a huge one, and that's being trusted. Whether it's a doctor, a nurse, staff members, If you get the reputation of being unreliable or you're not trustworthy, you are not going to do well in this industry, guys. Your reputation is more important than you could possibly know. Doctors talk, staffs talk. And if you get that bad reputation, they're not going to use you. You want to be the person that every time they call, Joe's there. I'm going to answer my phone. I mean, I was the type, I don't care if it was a Saturday or Sunday. If a patient called me, if it was 2 a.m, I'm answering the call. It drives you crazy. It sucks, but I know that they can trust me. Their staff, that doctor knows if they put in a device in a patient or if they need any support, if they reach out to me anytime, I'm going to answer my phone. If I don't answer, trust me, I'm going to get back to them right away as soon as I get that message. But that's the level of commitment and sacrifice that I would make for my offices, or at least have a backup plan that if I'm away next week, out of the country, contact so-and-so, have a system in place. But it's earning that trust that when you're in the operating room, they trust you. So a lot of you guys that don't realize this, if you're not in the industry, even some of you that are, the elite reps, when they're in the OR, they're the quiet ones. You'll notice that. But don't get me wrong, sometimes there's reps that aren't that good and they're quiet because they're nervous. But the really, really good reps, the ones that are in full control of that operating room, are quiet. They don't sit there and constantly bark out orders and say, oh, no, you got to do this with that, put that device with this, and grab that sheath and put the catheter through here. Like, guys, they're calm and they're there when you need them, right? If you have a question, they can answer it. You need me to help you with that? They offer suggestions, but they're cool. If things go wrong, which happens a lot, and that's what separates the elite from the average, they're calm. They're not freaking out. And even though inside I was one of those reps, I could be freaking out inside because I'm trying to navigate through a situation that I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to troubleshoot, but I would never let them see me sweat. That was the key. I always say to myself, we're going to figure it out, but to maintain your cool. Because if you lose your cool, guys, and they see you're flustered, doctors are going to be worried about working with you. I mean, believe me, a lot of doctors, there's things that go wrong every day in the operating room. They sometimes don't know what the hell's going on. They don't freak out. They're calm. They're in control. That's what makes them a good physician. So you got to think that way. You got to be calm and in control, and that's what's going to help earn you that trust. And last, guys, there's a big difference between being a product pusher and a problem solver. Anyone could push product. Anyone could come in there and talk about a device. Anyone could come in there and talk about a medication. You memorize the features and benefits. You memorize this. You memorize the side effect profile. That's being a product pusher. But if you could become a problem solver, that's where things change. Hold on one second. Sorry. So a problem solver that's where you add value. That's where you see, like, why does everyone use, Susan or Bill or whoever the top reps are? It's because they solve problems. Number one, they ask a lot of questions. They find out what the pain points are for that staff, for that physician. And then they see how their product and their support can solve some of those issues. If you're talking to a hospital administrator and everything is about the budget, then you got to break it down. You can't sit there and talk about the features and benefits of your product. That's not solving a problem. You also got to know your audience, because a lot of times they don't give a shit about the features and benefits. They're there about the ROI, the numbers. How much is this going to cost me? And if they're having troubles, with their budgets, and you're not giving solutions, you're talking about features and benefits, they're not going to remember you. They're not going to want to work with you. But if you're showing them that if using your product is going to save them money and, result in this amount of savings and, help them be under budget, trust me, guys, now you become a problem solver. And that's what they want to hear. So remember that. You always want to be focused as a problem solver, not a product pusher. There's a huge, huge difference. So, a couple key examples here to let you know that if you're doing things right. One of the things for me that was a simple sign if I'm doing well in this office or not is if the staff referred to me as Joe, or if they referred to me as the XYZ rep, the Organon rep, the Boston Scientific rep. When they say that, you got to be a little insulted, or on your, because mad at yourself, not at the staff. You're not doing a good enough job yet, guys. If they're not referring to you, calling the doctor in the back and say, Joe's here, Joe Licata is here. If they're saying the Organon rep is here, the Boston Scientific rep is here, that's usually a sign that you didn't build enough, show enough value yet, where they look at you as an extension of their practice. So you want to make sure that you're considered an extension of the practice. To me, that was the biggest compliment. When I would get invited to office Christmas parties, holiday parties, whatever it is, it's Dr. Jones's birthday next week. We're all going out. Joe, why don't you come with us? And this happens, didn't happen with every office, but throughout my career, it happened a lot. And that's something you should be proud of, guys, because if they're doing that, they truly consider you a member of the staff. That is such it's not an easy thing to get to that level. And you're not going to get that with every office. But if you do, you're doing things right. You're bringing value. If you're an extension of the office, that is a major, major compliment. But again, you're showing them that you're putting them first, becoming a problem solver, and adding real value. Okay. And then last little line I'll leave you with before we move on to the next topic is, average reps sell products, quota crushers sell outcomes. There's a big difference, guys. That's what I was talking about between being a problem solver and a product pusher. You want to sell the outcome, not just sell the features and benefits of that product. Okay. But just to talk about a little bit about getting back into that OR, and really, if you want to be an elite med device rep, it's winning inside the hospitals in the OR. And that's where the real credibility comes, guys. When they see you, this is like game day when you're out there, and you're in action. You get that one first case with someone, guys, you want to knock it out of the park. You want to come off as professional and as prepared and as reliable as any other physician. That's the way I would always strive to be. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor, but I want to be as reliable that they feel like they have a colleague in the room, that they can ask me anything about my product, my part of the case, and I'm going to be able to help them. Because, guys, a lot of times that's what you're expected to do. They have you in there because they can't know everything. You're there to help them, help guide them. And that's where you got to gain real credibility. So really take advantage for all you device reps. When you get a case, your relationship, your credibility, everything can really catapult or plummet in that first case. Because some of these cases, you could be with these doctors for hours, guys, and you're getting a lot of free time with them. You got to utilize that time well and really shine that you know what you're doing in these cases. It's so important because I've seen how people go from 0 market share to getting 100% market share with the doctor because they really kick ass in the OR, and that's going to help you build those surgeon relationships, guys. It's so important. Surgeons are tough. Especially you'll notice there's different personalities. A lot of times ortho surgeons are a little bit more, rougher. They'll curse in the OR. They're a little bit more aggressive. A lot of them are football players. They're big guys. I mean, I've worked with all these guys. They got big egos. You got neurosurgeons who have really big egos. They're brilliant. They know, that it's one of the toughest organs in the body to know and the most complicated. And obviously, when you're working with these guys, it's a little different than, say, working with a podiatrist or, a primary care doctor. So understanding the dynamic and really being able to build those relationships with individuals that have gone to school for years to do these, these specialties, it's very important, but that's what's really going to help you, get to that next level. And then next, guys, when you're in these hospitals, you got to realize there's a hierarchy, and you got to respect that hierarchy. Okay. So you don't want to be going out in there and just, pushing a product, talking to a nurse or a doctor one day, and then all of a sudden, be hitting up all the VPs of different departments and the CEO of the hospital. I mean, guys, there's a process that you want to follow. Okay. And you of course, you got to make multiple call points and you got to hit everyone up, but you want to follow a process. If you're coming in there to talk about your drug or your product, ask what the process is. How does it work at this hospital? It's not always the same, guys. It's not always the same players. Some doctors or some specialties can have more say in one hospital than they do in another. So you want to make sure that you have a full understanding of what is this going to look like? What does the buying process look like? And then follow, the correct protocol and hierarchy to get your product approved. Because you don't want to ignore that or assume that purchasing is really going to care about this, or biomed, has to be involved. They're going to want to say, guys, again, you want to make sure you understand that hierarchy, understand the process there, and then you'll be able to sell in a much more effective manner. Next, working with nurses and techs. I know a lot of you guys, you get in there, you see that surgeon, and it's like you go blind. I mean, I did this many years. A lot of times I was like, all I want to do is talk about it with that doctor. Just want to get with that doctor, really sell them about my product, talk about the next case we could work on. Guys, you don't realize how valuable and how influential a lot of the nurses and techs are, and especially when it comes to workflow. I mean, there's reps that I've worked with that were amazing, and there were reps that I worked with that weren't so good. And a lot of times going in there and getting familiar with the staff, getting familiar with the nurses, the techs, walking them through whatever device, the procedure you're going through, making sure they're comfortable before the case. Have you done any of these before? Is there anything you need help with? Sometimes they'll say, hey man, I never did this before. If you can make their life easier and you're getting them out of a jam, because they don't want to look stupid either in that operating room. You make their lives easier. Trust me, guys, they're going to want to see you back. They're going to look to work with you. They're going to help influence that doctor to work with Joe, because Joe is always prepared. He makes my life easier. I'm so comfortable when he's in the OR. All these things are so important, guys. So do not overlook the rest of the staff and just be laser focused on that doctor. Next, guys, like I said before, it's being calm. It's one of the toughest things in the OR. Shit happens. You're going to go through training. They're going to give you different scenarios. I mean, Boston Scientific did an amazing job with this, where they trained you. They trained you, then they tested you, then they tested you under pressure. And it was such an effective training program, because you get in there and you train you, they would teach you everything. Then you go in and they test you and you feel like, oh, I'm really comfortable, I'm ready. Then they try to mimic a real environment where stuff happens in the OR that you're not prepared for. The power goes out. Your batteries died in your computer. There's a connection problem with your leads. Your battery isn't charged. All these crazy things that you think like, oh, what the hell are we doing in these outlandish circumstances? You get in the OR and there's times that shit happens and you don't know what's going on. I mean, for selling spinal cord stim, I remember you'd have to connect to your computer and test the connections. And sometimes it would be all red X's on the leads. You don't know what's up. Now, if you don't properly troubleshoot, you can say, you know what, doc, that's a bad lead. Here's another one. And now you're costing the company money, because you didn't properly troubleshoot. And meanwhile, it was a good lead. You just didn't check another connection first. That doesn't cost any money. Sometimes it's like doing the old school, like Nintendo routine where you're blowing in a wire, or you're, to get out a little dust that's causing a problem, or you have to unplug and replug again. All of a sudden it turns on. You got to do a lot of this troubleshooting, but at the end of the day, no matter what your product is, you got to maintain calm. You got to be cool. You don't want to freak out and go, doctor, I don't know what the hell's going on. That's what you feel like, Will you sit there, Doc? Just give me a second. I'm just testing a few things. I'll have this worked out in a second. Gotta be calm, right? Believe me, guys, they know stuff happens, but if you're that rep that's making you're nervous, you're going to make everyone else nervous, and they're not going to want you in the OR. So you gotta be cool and calm under pressure. And then this goes hand in hand with handling issues during the cases. You got to be able to troubleshoot and handle those issues live, guys. This isn't one of those where a doctor asks you a question about a product, like say for a pharmaceutical product, say, yeah, Joe, what's the side effect profile? How many patients experience nausea? Where you could say, you know what, I don't have that exact answer, but give me a sec. Let me reach out to the home office and I'll get you that answer. And you get back to them in a couple hours or tomorrow. Guys, this is live. You need to figure stuff out that moment. There's a patient on the table. And again, sometimes it's life or death. It's that serious. So you got to be able to handle things immediately and be able, again, to maintain that calm, cool, persona. Okay. Well, before we, because I don't want to go too far, James, this is a good spot to stop. Any questions from the crowd?
Yeah, we got a couple, Joe.
Beautiful.
We got a couple. Joseph Paul Giordano said, "Get there before they open the room!" Exclamation point.
100%.
James Whitmore, another guy with a great name. Do elite reps in medical sales work more hours or just smarter hours? I feel like hustle culture gets glorified, but I've seen burned out reps who were working 60 hours a week and still missing numbers.
Yeah, well, 100%. Some reps can work. Number one, they definitely work smarter. Always work smarter. But they sometimes can work longer hours too because they're busier. They got bigger territories. They got more volume, more cases. Even though they have a couple clinical specialists running around covering cases, sometimes they're covering cases too. And they're so busy that it results in more hours. But typically, an elite rep is going to be a smarter rep, is going to be a more prepared rep. Their weeks are going to be prepared well in advance. They don't get up on a Monday morning, get out of bed, yawn, and go, all right, where the hell am I going today? Oh, I got a case in West Caldwell, so I'm going to call on all Essex County doctors that day. That makes sense. Like, no, guys, you got to have strategy. You got to have stuff planned out. And the busier you get, you're going to work more hours. That's just usually the nature of the beast when you're that busy. But it is definitely more important to work smarter, because that's the only way to get to getting busier. Because if you're just running around and you're busy, but you're not being productive, it's not actually bringing revenue in, then you got to reevaluate exactly what you're doing.
I got Mama of Two Boys 783. I'm studying for my CNPR right now, and I already thinking ahead. How realistic is it to hit quota in year one, or is that basically impossible?
Okay. Well, again, when I hear the CNPR, I know you already paid for it, so I don't want to give you a guilt trip here. The CNPR is good to put down on your resume just to show that you go above and beyond and you work to own your own development. You don't just worry about, you don't just do things that people tell you to do. You go out and try to learn more to try to separate yourself. Is any company going to say, we want someone that has a CNPR? No, they don't care. That's just me. I got to keep it real here. I've never had a company that said, Joe, one of the requirements, they need that certification. So don't do it for that. They're also going to train you on any terminology, anything you need to know. They're going to train you on this, guys. Doesn't matter how many years you have in the industry. They always make sure that everyone is well trained. So you're going to get that training. You're going to learn the terminology. But again, you want to make sure that you're putting that down on your resume just to show that you go above and beyond to own your own development. And this, repeat the second part of the question, James. I'm sorry, because when I heard the CNPR, I always want to just
be a little triggered there, Joe.
Yeah.
How realistic is it to hit quota in year one, or is that basically impossible?
I mean, it's very realistic. I mean, most companies that are setting up their territory goals the right way, an effective way, they're creating realistic goals. So if you're just starting out and you're in a brand new territory, the numbers should be very low compared to, the more experienced reps in territories that are out there. So they should make the goals very attainable. And this is a great question to ask reps when you're going for interviews. When you're speaking to these other reps and doing your research to learn about the company, ask them, how are they doing with their goal? How is everyone doing collectively? Sometimes they tell you guys and say, no one's hitting their goals. No one makes money here. I've heard this before. That's a red flag. So a lot of you that want to break in and you'll do whatever to break in, you don't want to jump from the frying pan into the fire, guys. Make sure that if people aren't hitting their quota, don't think you're going to come in as super duper, Superman rep and you're going to be the only one. You can definitely hit your numbers in your first year. They should create goals that make it attainable, but make sure you're doing your research because every company is different and you're asking, what percentages are actually hitting their number. You can ask the hiring managers that. They should be honest and tell you, and then you can make a decision one way or the other if this is worth it.
Marcus Hill, Joe, do elite reps have different relationships with their clinical staff? I feel like my technical knowledge is solid, but I'm not getting pulled into cases the way the top reps in my region seem to be.
I mean, on average, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they usually have a great relationship with everyone on that team that they're working with, from doctors to nurses to techs. Excuse me. That's why I was talking about before, how it's so important that you don't just be laser focused on the physicians. It's the whole staff. You can have a great relationship. A lot of times doctors sometimes would say they don't even care who they use today. And it could be a nurse that reaches out to someone and say, hey, could you come in next week? Dr. Jones has a case. You don't know that. Sometimes they're in a room and they'll say, hey, by the way, why don't we use Joe? His new device is so easy to use. It's so much better for us. And doctor will be like, all right, great. It doesn't matter to me. They all, work similar. So they're definitely building those relationships with those staff members. You want to make sure you're doing the same.
Fit Dad 6933. Okay, so genuine question. Do elite med reps have a specific morning routine, or is that a myth? I feel like everyone says wake up at 5 a.m., but does that actually matter?
I definitely think it does. And I'm not sitting here telling anyone you got to get up at 5 a.m. every day, but the more successful people I know in life, it doesn't even have to be a sales rep. I know guys that own, major businesses. They're morning people. They're doing workouts right when they wake up. They're handling calls or getting work done, answering emails before the rest of the world is typically, getting out of bed. I'm a big proponent of this. I get up every morning, 5:30, I answer emails, I start prospecting, and then by 6:15, I start my workouts. And I do an hour and a half of workouts, and then from there, I start my day. But that's my routine every morning. Emails, prospecting, and then workouts. And that gets me through the first 2.5 hours. And then my real day starts. But I feel like I'm ahead of everyone. Number one, because I don't think most people are getting up and going for a 5-mile run. I don't think they're doing, a workout, doing a hardcore high intensity workout or a weightlifting workout. They're not already responding to people. They're letting their day start and then control them. You want to be in control of your day. There's a difference. When you get up late, you're out of the house by 8:30 and you're playing catch up because you just woke up at 8. Now all of a sudden you got emails to respond. People are calling. Now the rest of the world is up and now their day starts. Now you're chasing after your day. Be in control of your day. Get up before everyone else is. If you do this for a month or 2 months straight and you tell me that you don't see any success, then I'd be shocked. You're going to see a difference, guys. Even if it's getting up an extra 20 minutes early, utilizing that time, you're going to see a difference and you're going to be more successful.
I got nutrition first coach. Joe, do elite reps ever struggle with imposter syndrome, especially when they're in a new to a territory? Or does the confidence just come naturally at that level?
No, I don't think anybody. Yeah, of course, there's some people that are more cocky, more sometimes they do have imposter syndrome and they just play it off really well. But for the most part, guys, that your true colors are going to come out. So the elite reps, they're great because they keep at what they work on their craft. If they didn't all come out this way, guys, and jump into the field and just are amazing reps, they have good habits. They're consistent. They're constantly looking to improve on themselves. They own their own development. That's what good reps do. They do all these things and they keep doing it over and over. That's why is it that a rep has won 3 president's clubs at 3 different companies? Did he always get this amazing territory? No. I mean, this is what hiring managers are looking for. They're looking for repeat success or duplicated success where you can. That's why when you talk about your successes, you explain your strategy, your approach, your game plan. They get excited and they want to hire you because they're saying, wow, if he could do that there, he just explained, gave me a little taste of, what his strategy is, then he could do the same thing here. That's what they're looking for. So it's more about process, strategy, game plan. They have that mastered, and that enables them to duplicate their success no matter wherever they go.
I got Kevin Brunner. I coach youth baseball, so I'm always thinking about performance under pressure. Joe, how do elite reps handle the end of quarter crunch when they're close but not there yet? Is there a playbook for that?
Yeah, they hustle and scramble their asses off to hit that number. But most reps, they're not scrambling at the end of a quarter. Most elite reps aren't. They're already hitting their quota. They already crushed their quota, and they're ahead of the game because they're prepared. It's all about preparation, guys. Guys, look, it doesn't matter how good of a rep you are. We all don't hit our numbers some quarters. It happens. You could be doing everything right, and sometimes the stars just don't align. But they don't kick it into gear, if it's the first quarter when March 1st hits and they realize they only have 20% to plan. They don't operate that way. They're winning the quarter just like an athlete. He doesn't win the game today. The game has been won months ago when he started practicing, when he started working out. The off season is where you win the games. And that sounds corny, but that's real. I mean, I know, I think we talked about it before. Deion Sanders, he talked about treat every practice like it's a game. So when the games come, it feels like practice. And you got to think that same way. Always be prepared. And that's so you're not chasing. We all have been there where we're chasing at the end of last week to get a couple of POs in to hit our number. But if you're ahead of the game and you're constantly preparing, you're not going to put yourself in that situation.
I got Sarah Nguyen, I guess is how you pronounce it. I'm currently working in the cath lab and exploring a transition to cardiovascular or structural heart sales. My question is around quota in clinical environments. Do elite reps in highly clinical specialties think about their quota differently given the longer sales cycles and physicians' education component? Would love your perspective.
I mean, I don't think anybody, depending on your specialty, should think about your quota differently. I don't think they actually look at it in a different regard. I just think they have a better game plan on how they're going to get there. For instance, if you're in the cath lab, which I worked in the cath lab, for a few years, working with electrophysiologists, you're not looking at each doctor and saying, well, I already work with Dr. Jones. I already work with Dr. Smith. No, you're breaking it down by procedure. Okay, this is very important because if you really want to crush your number, you could say, yeah, but the doctor used me, 3 times this past month. He's one of my biggest users. You're like, okay, but he's only using you for VTs. That's one of the case types, ventricular tachycardias. They also are doing 50 AFibs a month, and you don't have any of that business. So you got to have a stepwise approach on going from, okay, VTs are the low-hanging fruit. I got those already. What could I do next? Okay, ATACs. That's something they would use us for. SVTs, That's the next level. And then you finally work your way up to AFibs and flutters and everything else. But that would be the process you have to follow in this specific example, where you're focusing on different procedure types, not just the physician. You know, you got to break that physician down. He could be worth 100 cases. And just because he's using you once a week, you still got, you know, another 95, 96 cases that you can pull from. Start breaking that down into different case types, and that's going to help you become successful.
Max Schroeder, should I be tracking my own performance / metrics?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a great question, Matt, because this I see a lot, especially with reps trying to break in the industry. And they have sales experience, and I get this a lot. Well, Joe, when I say to them, how come on your resume there's no results? I don't see anything. I see a lot of daily activities, but no results, but you're in a sales role. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, Joe, you know what? My company didn't keep track of that. Okay, that may be true. I don't believe that every time, but say it is true. Track it yourself, guys. You should know. You shouldn't need a company to tell you every day how you're doing. You should know that. Now, pharma is a little different because with pharma, sometimes until the numbers come out and they get all that data from the pharmacies, you don't know exactly where you're at. But you should have such a good understanding of your territory that you at least know the impact you're having with physicians. You should know just by your conversations who your top physicians are, but it's definitely with device. I mean, you know when surgeries happen, you know when you get POs, you should know to the dollar exactly where you're at, no matter when it is throughout the month. You should be tracking that progress because you need to also track if you're in the top 10% and you want to be the top 2 or 3% in the company or number one in the company, what do you need to do to get there? If you don't know that, you know, if you don't know your numbers, how do you know if it's 3 cases, 5 cases, 10 cases? You need to know all that to get to that next level. So you absolutely have to have a mastery of your business.
Heather Blanchard, I spent 6 years in pharma and hit President's Club twice. I'm now looking at moving into medical device and honestly a little intimidated by the quota structure and longer cycles. How different is elite performance in device versus pharma? And are there foundational habits that are the same?
Well, first of all, pharma and device they're very different. I mean, there's similarity that you're calling on doctors and you're selling to doctors, whether it's a device or a drug. So that part's similar, but it is a different world when you get in that operating room, you know, and that stress and pressure, that's real pressure, you know, and a lot of pharma reps, that's tough for them at first when they get anybody. It's tough for anybody, but anybody that's new to that environment, you got to be prepared for that. In terms of approach, excuse me, again, it's more of a long-term, some people might say it's all, I shouldn't say that. It's not a longer term. I never seen one where pharma's quicker than device in making an impact. Sometimes they can be quick and you can walk in a doctor's office, which is rare. And they say, you know what? I love everything you said. I'm going to prescribe that drug to my next patient. Or Joe, I love what you said. I'm going to use you on my next case. Excuse me. So there's no real difference in timeline. When you get to hospital sales in med device and you get the capital component, yes. Excuse me. That gets the time cycles then change drastically. And they're very long. That could be a long process. And when you get to that, you have to celebrate small wins. So you might not get a sale for 6 months, a year. You could be working on it. You can't come home every day and go, another day I didn't get that sale. You'll wind up, you know, freaking out and giving up. You got to focus a little, like they always say, how to eat an elephant, you know, piece by piece. Excuse me. So you want to make sure that you're doing the same approach. You can't just wait for the sales to happen to celebrate. You got to celebrate booking an appointment with the doctor. You know, maybe booking a site visit somewhere, you know, booking an opportunity, say if it's part of a construction, your project that they need to construct and they're doing a renovation somewhere and you have that timeline that makes sense. You got to celebrate those small wins, guys. Trust me, because that's the way that you handle those longer term sales. But in terms of pharma versus device, it really depends on the product, the doctor. There isn't one that I'd say is a longer cycle than the other.
Greg Sullivan, Joe, one thing I've seen derail talented reps is the post-quota problem. They have a massive Q4, quota gets inflated for the following year, and now they're behind from day one. How do elite reps approach the quota negotiation or reset conversation with their managers?
Well, everyone's got to, typically, guys, this comes from the top down. When companies, sometimes they do a great job of this and sometimes they do a terrible job, and it really is dictated by, from the upper management, that if they're going to just make it all about them and they got to grow by 50% the next year, you're going to expect that a lot of people are going to be unhappy because they're not going to hit their numbers, and the last thing you want to do is piss off your elite reps, because they're elite reps for a reason. They can pick up and go somewhere else, and you're going to be shit out of luck. So you don't want to piss them off. The companies have to set attainable goals, and especially with reps that they know have a huge market share in their territory. You can't penalize reps because they have a huge market share and then make it all about growth year over year. They have to have different components set up where it's worthwhile for that rep who already has 90% market share. How are they supposed to grow? As opposed to a young rep with zero market share, and they can explode and all of a sudden they're getting the big commissions. Because I saw this years ago where one of the top reps in the company, when I was at Organon, she was an amazing rep, and she had some of the big institutions around. So I think one was like the Cleveland Clinic. She was crushing it, but it was based on volume more. So she was number one a couple of years in a row. Then one year they changed it to growth, and she was dead last in the company. Now that's not fair either, because this is still a rep that's generating a lot of volume, and all of a sudden now they're not going to make any bonuses. So they got to figure out a way, and most companies do this fairly, where they incentivize and inspire everyone to really go out there and keep busting their ass. But it depends on the company and how it's set up. But the elite reps are having those conversations, candid conversations, and justifications on why the number shouldn't be changed. And that comes down to, or not, they shouldn't expect a 50% growth or whatever the crazy number is, because they really know their territory. And the more that you really know that and can break that down and verbalize that with your manager, you're helping your manager, because again, it's not coming from them, guys. They got to go to the VP or the, whatever level up from there, to their director, VP, CEO, whoever it is, and justify their case. But if you don't know your territory, like we said at the beginning, you don't have that extreme ownership. How can you possibly go to your manager and say that the number is too high if you can't break it down by physician? So the good reps are proactive. They know their territories. They have complete control of their territories. So they're able to have those discussions when the new numbers come out.
We got Ohio State Zach 21. I always hear about brag books and how they help in interviews. Do elite reps also use them once they're in the role, or is that just an interview thing?
I don't know many reps that pull it out, at any time during the role or talk about their brag book. I know elite reps, though, they are keeping a brag book and are keeping track of all their accomplishments. So a lot of you out there could be a lot of recruiters on this call, a lot of hiring managers listening in, and like, what the hell is he talking about? I haven't asked for a brag book in years. And you don't hear it that much. You don't hear managers saying, can you please bring your proof of sales performance? Sometimes they do, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. Now, for me, I think that's a golden opportunity for you to utilize your brag book. You want to track anything positive, a positive email from a manager, a customer, a great quarterly, performance, an award, anything, guys. Put that into a digital folder, save it somewhere, and then also print it out and put it into a hard copy, and it make your actual brag book that you can give at interviews and review at interviews to show your success, because few reps do it. It's going to help you stand out. It's going to show how organized you are. Again, how much control you have over your business and how you are able to duplicate that success from one company to the next. So I'm a big fan of brag books. If you can't tell.
I got, I think, one more for you, Joe.
Okay.
We have Brunch Time Brian. I've been at 95 to 105% for 3 years. I never blow it out. What's the mental and strategic shift to go from consistent to elite?
Well, I mean, again, you're doing something right. So if you're constantly in that 95 to 105, you're doing a lot of good things. So I wouldn't just, I wouldn't look at it being at 105% as a negative. I think that's great. I just think whatever you're identifying, whatever physicians you're doing this, you're doing it well. You're only one or two doctors away, one or two customers away from blowing out that number. So I think it's just identifying those couple of individuals out there, and getting that success. So you can blow it out. But, honestly, without knowing all the information, that's a tough question to give you a solution to. If you want to reach out to me on the side, hit me up, send me a DM on LinkedIn, and you can tell me more details so I can help you navigate that. I'm more than happy to do that. But from what you're telling me, you're doing a great job, and, keep it up.
That's all I got for you today, Joe.
Awesome,
yeah, that's all we got.
Awesome. Well, thank you, James.
Of course.
Great job, man. You didn't bust me too much today, which I'm happy about.
No, you gave me a good movie reference. I was happy.
Yeah. See, now I know where to go. I'm starting to realize your genre, and so I know the type of movies that you're going to be into.
To be fair, Devil Wears Prada and Pitch Perfect were a little not unexpected from you, Joe.
All right.
I expect that more from your wife.
We'll see where the numbers are in May when the Pitch Perfect 2 comes out and it's the number one movie.
It's probably going to be, but it's going to be all women watching. Yeah, and Joe.
It's not like I don't like Casino and Goodfellas and all those movies too. I like them too. You just got to recognize a good movie's a good movie. I'm secure enough in my manhood to realize I can say that Devil Wears Prada is a good movie. That's all. So anyway. But thank you for that. Thank you guys for all the questions. Again, guys, any of you that want to get in this industry, reach out to me today for the RepPath Academy. Shoot me a DM. RepPath.com. Contact me, and we're going to help you break in. Okay? Any questions, please reach out today. Stop trying to figure it out for yourself and get frustrated. That's what we're here for. We're going to help you do that and help you get in this space quicker. Lastly, guys, anybody that's a lobby member, as always, give the promo code Licata, Licata, so you can get additional discounts for any of our services. But that's it for today, guys. As always, there's a code Licata.
You spelled it right this week.
Of course, I'm getting it down now. It's amazing, 2 weeks in a row. But if I don't hear from you guys every Monday and Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, join us for these RepPath podcasts. And if I don't see you, I'll see you on Wednesday, guys. Have a great week.